I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true, but the world is pretty cold. You might need a sweater too. I'ma put a ride on ya. Kid from California, trying to make it in life. In school they never taught you.
p.m.
First, the good news. Malaysia will be producing the world's first flying car by the end of 2019. Now, the bad news. The power windows will still not work, just like the one on Proton.
Run.
First, the good news. The ECRL is now on again and at a reduced price. Now, the bad news. The ECRL will be shorter and have less station, and 4,500 acres of land will be given to China.
The following Thursday.
First, the good news. Malaysia will have the first women Chief Justice. Now, the bad news. She is prejudiced against Prime Minister in waiting, Anwar Ibrahim, and she thinks he is gay and is guilty of sodomy. Now, the good news. Malaysia's economy will recover by 2023. Now, the bad news. Most Malaysians will be bankrupt by then.
1 hour later.
First, the good news. Malaysia's debt will be reduced back to 680 billion by 2020. Now, the bad news. This will be achieved by reverting to the old Barisan Nasional's accounting system of not taking contingency liabilities as debt.
Bye, have a great time.
3 hours later.
First, the good news. The 6% GST off has been abolished and now replaced by a lower SST tax structure. Now, the bad news. Prices have increased higher than the UK that has 20% GST. Oh no!
346 minutes later.
First, the good news. 90 million that Najib Razak is alleged to have donated to PAS did not come from 1NDB. Now, the bad news. The MACC cannot trace the 90 million check that Najib has alleged to have given to PAS. No! First, the good news. The RM 1.4 million that Ramli Musa has paid Claire Rucastle Brown was not an out-of-court settlement for her London court case with Abdul Hadi Awang. Now, the bad news. Claire's lawyer, Amarit Singh Sidhu, has falsely declared to Bank Negara the 1.4 million as an out-of-court settlement to obtain approval to transfer the money to UK and committed a crime of money laundering.
Run.
Approximately 10 hours later.
First, the good news. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has agreed to hand power to Anwar on or around May 2020. Now, the bad news. That is on condition Anwar is not sitting in jail on Sodomy 3 charges back then.
Many unbearable hours later.
First, the good news. The AP is expected to win the Sadakam by-election. Now, the bad news. Sabah will just still be another state in Malaysia. First, the good news. Sabah and Sarawak will loyally vote only for those who support the MA63. Now, the bad news. Sabah and Sarawak will still remain two of the 13 states of Malaysia. Now, first, the good news. Chinese are now welcome back to invest in Malaysia. Now, the bad news. Chinese are not welcome to settle in Malaysia.
16 paranoia-filled days later.
First, the good news. The majority of Malays voted for Barisan Nasional in the Rantau by-election. Now, the bad news. Even the Chinese, Indians and youth in Rantau voted for Barisan Nasional. First, the good news. Malaysia is going to buy billions in arms from Russia, China and Pakistan. Now, the bad news. Russia, China and Pakistan will not be receiving any cash, just palm oil.
A few inches later.
First, the good news. The Felda settlers will be receiving an increase of 1,000 ringgit in SARA Hidup. Now, the bad news. The 1,000 ringgit SARA Hidup is worth only half of what it was worth 1 year ago.
One debt to society later.
First, the good news. Malaysia will now allow medical marijuana to be grown in the country. Now, the bad news. Malaysia will not be abolishing the death penalty for growing marijuana. Yay!
75 years later.
First, the good news. Malaysia will be reducing the bloated 1.6 million civil service by 300,000 people. Now, the bad news. The 300,000 civil servants who will be losing their jobs are on Malays.
Thousands of tears later.
First, the good news. Dr. Wan Azizah refuses to resign as the Deputy Prime Minister. Now, the even better news. Anwar Ibrahim has moved out of the house.